Welcome to Dragonheart. This is Chay and I'm joined by Mark Griffiths. How's things, Mark?
Yeah, not too bad. So ever so sorry about last week when I failed my fitness test. I got to say, though, it's probably worth saying, having been a bit unwell beforehand, I then had my booster jab for COVID, and it knocked me sideways. I genuinely don't think I've ever felt so ill in my entire life. But I'm really glad I had it, because if COVID feels anything like that, I do not want COVID. So it's well worth having the booster and going through that for a couple of days. But I did feel really rough. Man. Oh, I'm fine.
But it certainly isn't anything to play with. I've had COVID not so long ago, and it is rough. Anyway, back to Wrexham. We've got quite a few things to talk about. We've got the Yeovil game, the Dover game to go over. We're going to talk about referees' decisions that have changed games in the past. We've heard that through opinions on Twitter, and we've also got a few just little bit of Wrexham bits and bobs to talk about. So this is Dragonheart.
This is Sean Brisley. This is Dragonheart.
Wrexham suffered their first home defeat of the season when we played Yeovil. It was a bit of a strange game, though, wasn't it, Mark?
It was, wasn't it? It was windy, and the game looked scrappy anyway. I got to be honest, maybe I'm being over-optimistic, but it felt a little bit to me like the sort of game that we'd grind the win out of. It wouldn't be pretty, but it would be effective, and we'd build ourselves up and get into it more second half and get this nick a goal. That's how it felt. But then, of course, it's conditioned by the controversial sending off. So after that, we were toiling. We do have phenomenal records with 10 men over the last 2 or 3 years. But that had to give eventually. The reality had to kick in. And yeah, it was a shame.
And yeah, it was one of them, really. I thought we looked okay before the red card. Yeah. Nothing amazing, but I thought we looked okay. I don't think we created much, but it was only 34 minutes into the game, and the red card was a real soft one, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we're going to talk about referees inspired by that decision anyway, but just to look at that decision, and I mean, look, don't get me wrong, he does jump into the challenge, and it is a foul. I'm not arguing against that for a second. It's not one of these outrageous, that was never a foul red cards. But is there enough contacts to warrant a red? I really don't think so. And the referees have been told to look very closely at that particular element now, not just the attitude, which seems to have grown with the introduction of VAR of if someone touches somebody, that must be a foul then. No, is there enough contact to make it a foul? There was enough to make it a foul, but there wasn't enough to warrant a sending off for my money. And the telling angles behind the goal, where you can see that McAlinden, I wouldn't say leads with his arm anyway, but his arm is down at the chest level of the Yeovil player. So the idea of sending McAlinden off for an elbow to the face, it really wasn't an elbow to the face. So yeah, he's very unfortunate, I think, to get a red for that. Very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, he was unfortunate. I could see a booking because it was there was an element of danger in that, leaning in with your arm. And on the flip side, if he did connect, his elbow did connect with the cranium of the Yeovil player and knocked him out, then it would have been a red card.
Yeah.
But for me, I've got a question. Why is he even making that challenge? He's not going to get the ball from there, is he?
No. But then don't we all go mad as fans when a defender gets an uncontested header out of the box and you're saying, why does that lad jump in and challenge him? So I think he's trying to be enthusiastic and maybe be a little bit physical. But, he's... And like you say, if you say it's a yellow because he shouldn't have jumped in like that, if he hasn't really got much chance of winning the ball, yeah, I can live with that. But is there enough recklessness, enough violence, enough force behind it to be a red? Absolutely not, I don't think.
No. If that's a common red card, then the game's gone, isn't it? It's not a semi-contact sport anymore.
Yeah, that's very, very harsh. But we actually coped well up to half-time then with the 10 men. I thought we were the better team. And I applaud Phil Parkinson for being bold, leaving the 2 men up, and I applaud him for then, changing our shape a bit in the second half to try and keep being bold. I think absolutely. But I wondered if maybe we should have kept it closer to what we did in the first half when we had 10 men, because we did look pretty good actually in that period of play. But it's against 10 men, again 10 against 11, you're always pushing your luck, aren't you? You're always in danger of getting caught out, and that's what happened with us basically. I thought it looked like a nailed on 0-0 actually until they scored.
Yeah, that was my feeling going into the second half. I thought, I'd happily take a 0-0 here, and I actually think we're a better side than Yeovil. I do believe that. I think if it was 11 against 11, I think we probably would have ground out a 1 or 2-0 win. But yeah, going into that second half, I thought, we have our shots here. We weren't completely out of the game. We weren't getting outplayed with 10 men, were we, at all? And I wasn't really scared of Yeovil, but I thought that next goal was crucial. And I think if it went to Yeovil, I thought the game was over, and that's what happened, wasn't it?
Exactly. It was quite bold, I thought. Like I say, pushing Tozer up into midfield was quite a bold move. Yeah. It didn't quite work out that way, though, and Yeovil got a bit more momentum. But they weren't creating chances until they scored. No. The only thing I remember in the second half before that was a shot from the corner of the box that sort of curled wide. And the first goal, I mean, it's a fabulous finish by a centre-back who probably 99 times out of 100 blasts that over the bar. It was a hell of a volley. I've got to say, Rob Lainton, that's the save he made, but it still went in. It was a worldie. I mean, Staunton slammed it. Brilliant contact on that volley. And Lainton, I don't know how the hell he got a hand to it and nearly pushed her over the bar. I mean, goodness me. Oh, I felt so sorry for him. And then with the second goal, of course, he's made a very good save. And unfortunately, we've not defended the rebounds well at all. But my goodness, I felt so sorry for Lainton. And that first one, wow, what a save that nearly was. Yeah,
it was. And he's a quality keeper. But at the end of the day, we were 10 men. We've lost 2-0 to, let's be fair, Yeovil are a semi-decent side, aren't they? They're going to be in and around the playoffs this season.
Well, they're in great form. I mean, before that match, it was us and them are both unbeaten in 6. The only longer unbeaten one was Chesterfield. So we were the equal second best form teams in the division. So yeah, we can't do them down, can we? They're a decent side.
Oh, exactly. And then looking into that game, it was sort of really strange one, because the Bromley game before it was like sort of flipped roles, wasn't it? And then it was just it was really bizarre to go down to 10 men, going back into 10 men as my fan experience, which was really my first time going as a fan and not working it this season. I was in the Wrexham stand. I thought I'd add this because I completely forgot this happened, to be fair. No one knew in the Wrexham stand that McAlinden went off. We were all sort of looking. I remember to turn around talking to my brother. We were all talking, and there's a guy next to me saying, "Oh, why has McAlinden been subbed off?" I was like, "Oh, no, he's been sent off." It was all a bit strange, wasn't it?
Well, my lad in the stand said he's in the Wrexham stand, and he said exactly the same. He said that he noticed McAlinden walking off, and McAlinden took a while to walk off because he was protesting his innocence, and at that point, nobody around him knew he'd been sent off. And it was only the fact he was walking down the tunnel that gave it away to him. And he said one of his friends phoned up after the match and said, "Hey, McAlinden was sent off. I didn't even realise." So it was strange. I mean, I was right above it in the press box. But I got to be honest, when the ref brought the card out, he seemed to bring it out and back down very quickly. And I was expecting a yellow. And I had just a moment of like double taking, thinking, was that a red? And I sort of didn't. In the commentary, I didn't really totally commit myself to the fact it was a red, because I was nervous I'd just misseen it, because it was sort of flashed and put back in again, as if, was that actually a yellow? Was that a red? Was it really? And I was just thinking about the furious reaction. It must be a red, but I didn't see it coming. I really didn't see it coming.
The ref didn't have a great game, though, did he? Let's be fair.
No, true. Although I'm going to stick up for him a little bit. Oh, I feel dirty saying this. he's made an honest error of judgment.
Mm.
And I know I'm commentating, I'll moan about the referees in the moments, but generally I consider myself more of a friend of referees. I do appreciate, you get one chance to see it. I think there are certain types of mistakes that are unforgivable. I don't think an error of judgment is one of them. He's making his decisions. He's trying to be straight, and okay, you got that one wrong and it cost us, but that is life. And there were a couple others like that as well by him. The linesman gave some funny decisions, of course, as well. They didn't help him out totally. Yeah. And I felt a little, I wanted to temper my criticism of him a little bit, but
he was a bit of your bog standard National League ref, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think I said this before, that when we came down, you could feel the difference in refereeing straight away. And it is the 50th year of football. And we are getting the 50th year of officials. And we if we want to do something about it, we have to get promoted. It's as simple as that, really. We've brought it on ourselves by getting relegated. So,
and even then, getting promoted, the Football League referees aren't going to be the world's greatest either, are they?
No, true enough.
Everyone makes mistakes in their jobs, but especially in the National League refs, they seem to make a lot of mistakes. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, we'll forget about that Yeovil game. We then moved on to the Dover game, which for me was a must-win, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I've had a weird experience with this Dover game, I've got to be honest with you. I've been on a journey with it. At first, I wasn't very happy, to be honest. I didn't enjoy watching it. But having thought about it more, I'm quite pleased now. We didn't play well. No, of course we didn't. But we won. And that's all that matters, really. And so, although, I'd like to see us playing better than that, but I think in the context of a whole season, you're going to have some wins where you don't play that well. And at least we got that win. It was a lucky goal. But, with hindsight, I'm quite happy with that game, if I'm honest with you. At the time, I suffered like hell. But but afterwards, I've taken a step back and thought, okay, actually, I'll take this.
It was a painful listen and a painful watch, wasn't it? It was. Let's be fair. Yeah. Saying that, a win's a win, isn't it? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you win. And on paper, it just says 1-0. We've kept the clean sheet away from home against a poor side who did look up for it, didn't they? They created their own chances. But what's worrying me is we seem to it seems to be the story this season is we lack in creating chances, don't we?
Yeah, I got to be honest. Looking back at it, we make more chances than I sort of thought initially. When I was putting the highlights together, I was like, actually, we missed 4 fantastic chances, maybe more than 4. But the 4 I got in mind were all in the 6-yard box, off corners, and all fell to centre-backs who failed to finish it. And they should have done better, but they are centre-backs as well, I suppose. You'd rather those chances fall to Paul Mullen. But we did make chances off set pieces. It's just that we had such an expectation. We've gone to 2 of the 3 real struggling teams, Aldershot, Kings Lynn, and them. We've gone to Aldershot, Kings Lynn, and absolutely destroyed them. And I think we were hoping the same thing would happen at Dover because they've had such a horrible start to the season. But when that doesn't happen, you then start feeling naturally disappointed. I think if we'd scored in the open 20-odd minutes when we did look well on top, I think it could have been a similar scoreline, but we didn't. And then it started to get stressful as the team realised that we can't really afford to drop points here, and we're going to. And it got a bit stressy. But I must say as well, though, Chay, that that pitch was an abomination. I mean, It was a horrific pitch to play on. And I know it's the same for both sides. I know that. But having said that, Dover are a much more limited size. They got much lower quality players than us. And, when you've got a mismatch like that, having a bad pitch does help one side more than the other. Because if Dover want to fight and scrap, they can't match us for quality, but they can match us for effort and heart, like you alluded to before. And they can dig in, and on a pitch which doesn't help you to play football, it keeps them in the game and evens things out a bit. So it does help one side more than the other, I would argue. And it was a horrible pitch to play on, honestly.
Yeah, it didn't look very nice, did it? It looked like a swamp.
It was like rigid, wasn't it? You can see like it seemed to go up and down like it was corrugated, and
they don't have the money.
Well, did it?
Yeah, I suppose they don't have the money to pay groundsmen at the moment, do they? So
yeah, I mean, I'm usually sympathetic to clubs that are hard up. I'm not sure I'm sympathetic with Dover because they've played fast and loose with furloughing and refused to play last season. I think they've done incredibly well to just get a point deduction for that. I find that astounding. I'm not impressed by their motives, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, you could see the players battling with the ball when they were running with it. And there was a point in the first half where Mullen got into a great position. It's the sort of situation he's been scoring all season. And he doesn't even get a shot off in the end. And you just think he doesn't trust that pitch. He's thinking, I'll hit this, but will it just take a little hop in front of me as I'm hitting it? You can see he's just thinking, oh. And then also, I thought what was really telling was that, hang on, let's get this the right way around. The left-hand side, as we look at it when we were attacking in the first half, was much worse, it looked like, than the right-hand side. So in the first half, Bryce Susanna hardly gets forwards, and Hall Johnson does, because the pitch is a bit better on that side. And then in the other half, it was all reversed. That Hall Johnson didn't get forwards much, and Bryce Susanna did. Because that one side of the pitch seemed to be really horrible. The side, here's the sentence that gives it away. The side with the tractor tracks on it, that was the worst side. I think that says it all, doesn't it?
Oh, we need to get out of this league. We really, we need to get out of this league. There's so much this season. If it wasn't Aldershot's groundsman early on this season, and then the pitch against Dover, it just screams at a club of our caliber. We need to get out.
Kings Lynn wouldn't let the streaming company come in to film, despite the fact they'd said they would. Dover did allow them in, but then wouldn't let them on the gantry for some reason. You can see the picture. There's a lot of space on that gantry, but they wouldn't let them up there. And I felt very sorry for the guys who went across to film it, because the footage they came up with was absolutely unusable. No fault of theirs whatsoever. But they were literally on the sides of the pitch on a murky day with poor floodlights, with people walking in front of them all the time. I mean, honestly, that's a reason to get out of this league. Goodness me, can't we just get treated decently? But
I'm Aaron Hayden, and this is Dragonheart.
The National League does need some sort of reform, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's. I think a 5-man, and I'm not being sexist. It's always been a 5-man panel running it. We've already been a vote of no confidence in them, but the fact is that it'll be 5 representatives from 5 clubs. Now, I don't think it's really appropriate in a professional league to have a fifth of the teams actually making all the decisions, because you then get things like, okay, when the grants came in from the government at the start of lockdown, 2 of the 5 are Bournemouth and Dover, clubs who have very small attendances, but their loaners have pushed themselves into strong positions. Fair enough, they're entitled to do that. And then as a result of that, they decide that the grants will be distributed equally rather than on the basis. It was specifically named as compensation for lost attendance revenue. And yet they split it equally, poll tax style, and said each club will have exactly the same amount, because that, of course, meant that clubs like us, Notts County, lost out, whereas clubs like theirs made a profit out of being in lockdown, because they were getting more money through compensation than they would have got through having an average of 800 fans coming through the door. So, those sorts of decisions, well, I mean, that was one of the reasons for the vote of no confidence, wasn't it? That it appeared to be a conflict of interest. And it was admirable, I thought, that it was Maidstone United who led the charge, and used us in Notts County as examples, because they were acting out of fairness rather than just acting out of self-interest. That lent strength to our argument, really. It didn't matter in the end, but it was wrong. So I think it's very dubious. Well, all the talks about independent regulators now, isn't there? Having an independent people making decisions is valuable, I think, in a football organisation. But especially I do admit, in some ways, maybe the National League would be the trickiest, because that is where the professional meets the semi-professional. I do accept that. And I do think it's important to respect those smaller clubs' mentalities and needs. But at the moment, it's a little bit tail wagging the dog, because those mentalities run the rule for everybody, and other bigger clubs don't get their chance to do what they want.
But there should be standards and clear standards and regulations like every other league. If your team's good enough to be in the National League, then you should be up to scratch, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But that's what I mean, the lack of sort of consistent regulation.
Yeah.
That's why I'm deliberately talking about minimum requirements, because obviously we can offer better facilities than Kings Lynn can. And that's not a dig at Kings Lynn at all. We have better facilities. You have money to spend on those facilities, but there could be some minimum requirements. So, for example, the National League go round all the grounds. You have ground scaling, don't you? Ground grading, rather. What capacity do they have for gantries, for cameras? Okay, if you've got that capacity, you have to allow an away team, if they wish, to bring a camera. We've had clubs, not just the small clubs. Stockport have done this to us. You can't commentate at our ground. Well, why not? There should be a minimum that away sides can bring a radio commentator. That should be just a standard. What's there to stop that? I mean, nothing.
Or if you don't do that, then maybe a co-commentator must be from an away team, or I don't know.
Well, I think it's more just that they wouldn't let us commentate at all.
Yeah,
Stockballs have done that to us. Dover do that to us. I have done, not always. Boreham Woods charge £200 to do a commentary in their ground.
Did Stockport do it last season, was it?
It was during lockdown, and their logic was that people would listen to the commentary rather than pay for their stream, which is nonsense. I mean, I love commentating, but I wouldn't listen to myself, even though, God, I love listening to myself. If I could watch the game, I wouldn't listen to commentary. That's just taking away a free option from people who don't want to pay that money anyway, or aren't going to pay that money anyway. It's absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
So it's not just the smaller clubs, but the fact that, why can't they, the only cost to that side is a seat. You can say, you've got a big one seat available for an away commentator, just so people can hear what's happening in the game.
Yeah.
Why can't you just legislate for that? Everyone's got the facilities for that. And the reason I'm saying facilities, I've got to be honest, Chay, a little bit devious. Kings Lynn, if you look at the footage, they wouldn't let our camera crew in. Well, they can't say lack of facilities, because there's 4 camera gantries on the stand opposite where it was being filmed. It was being filmed behind the stand. There's 4 camera gantries on the roof of the stand opposite. So there's no way that we were inconveniencing them. There was no practical reason for them not to be able to. It wasn't that they couldn't accommodate us. It was that they chose not to, having said in midweek they would.
And hopefully we won't have to worry about this. And hopefully when we're in the Football League, a proper league, everything's set out for the most part, isn't it? You've got strict rules and regulations that every team has to abide by. And even when we do leave the National League eventually, I hope the National League do implement some sort of regulations. You never know. We could end up being back there again in 5-10 years. You never know when it comes to football.
Stop it.
Yeah, though, don't you? You never know what's around the corner when it comes to football. So, yeah. Anyway, who scored that goal against Dover? Because I couldn't quite make it out.
John Davis. Sorry, Jake. The corner comes in, and Jake hides at the near post and attacks it, and he makes a good effort, and I think puts people off by the way he lunges at the ball. But he's really not very close to making contact with it, I'm afraid. In fact, his head sort of ducks, and as the ball's going over him, he's even further away, and it looks like he's going to be. So he certainly doesn't touch it. And then I think because he's caused that kerfuffle, the defenders at the near post don't deal with it. It goes straight through, and we'd crowded the 6-yard box. The keeper misses it as well. And there's basically two defenders on the line with Ponticelli on them, and it hits one of them on his left hip. He's facing forwards, the goal's to his left. It basically, his left foot is on the goal line, and it hits his left hip. You can't see it, the contact, but you can see the ball disappears when it should go past. So you see it coming along, then doesn't come out the other side of his body because it's hit his hip and gone in. Because I think he's unsighted, and the first thing he knows about it is when it hits him. And although he got the final touch, for me, that's a Jordan Davis goal, partly because probably would have gone in anyway if the bloke hadn't touched it, so it's not one that would have gone wide. And secondly, because this is National League, and so whatever gets reported will stand. So regardless of who touched what, the fact, I mean, this is the literal truth. The fact that a Dover person, whether it's part of the media team or whatever, sitting in the stands, decided to send an email when it went in to the press association saying Jordan Davis scored at our level means he will always be credited with that goal.
But the most important part is we got the 3 points. Yeah. And it was a tough away day, tough conditions, and now we're sitting in a healthy place in the table, aren't we?
Exactly right. 4th place is good. I know teams have got games in hand around us, but so what? We've got better goal difference than them. So, we have an advantage in that way. I've said all along I'd rather have the points, the games in hand, and so I'm happy at the moment. I feel we're on the right side of that equation. And you know why? It's because of Dragonheart energy drink.
Yes, I did see this on Twitter.
This is magnificent. So, and brilliantly, it came from someone on Twitter whose username is Thermos Flask. And well done for that. But whose actual name is Mark Griffiths. In fact, I'm going to say I get quite a lot of correspondence with other Mark Griffiths. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. None of us have ever mentioned we got the same name. But he sent in a picture of a cooler, and it said they've got an energy drink here in Albania named after your podcast. And indeed, you can have red or blue Dragonheart. Ooh, looks like the blue is 49. Whatever the currency is in Albania, and the red one and the blue one 75. That must have extra energy in it. Oh, I'll tell you what,
we need to get some of that in, and we need to do a Dragonheart energy drink review.
Because have a review, and also of course have a sponsorship tie-up. So if you're listening in Albania and you're willing to sponsor us on the show, it would be absolutely fantastic. We can't wait to hear from you. I hear Tirana is lovely this time of year, and if you want me to come along and do some official visits, then I'd be delighted to do so.
Sounds good to me. But our next 3 games are very winnable too, aren't they? Our next 3 league games, so it's setting us in a really good track for the rest of the season, and let's hope we can really kick on, because I really can't see why we can't make a title run still. But again, the league's that tight from 10th up. A couple of losses and we're in a bad position, and a couple of wins, we're in a real title fight. So it's a really intriguing season in the National League this year.
I do like the idea of being in a title fight, though.
Yeah,
it's fantastic, isn't it?
We are at 4th at the moment. So which heavyweight boxer would you say we are historically?
Oh my word! Gosh, that's a brilliant question. I want to say Pinklon Thomas just because I get to say Pinklon. Actually, no, maybe not. I think he was a bit of more of a stodgy affair than we are. I don't know. We should.
Joe Frazier.
You're flashy, but
Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier. Ooh, smoking Wrexham. Why Joe Frazier?
Oh, because he's one of my favorite heavyweights of all time. That's all.
So just because you're a fan, so we're your favorite team. I realize you said heavyweight, and I said Sugar Ray Leonard, so I can't have that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go James Bone Crusher Smith. He always had a puncher's chance, and we're going to do what he did against Mike Tyson, where basically he held on for 12 rounds, and then in the last 10 seconds went on the attack. And we were going to strike late and strike hard. That's what we did at Dover. Yeah, Dover was the Bone Crusher Smith of performances. I like this. I should point out that we lost.
Here we go. Here's my bold prediction for the rest of the season. Right, last 10 games. Well, last 8 games, we're going to win them all, and we're going to win the title against Stockport at home.
Beautiful. That sounds good. The Bone Crushers are back.
And on that note, we're going to talk about our next topic, which is going to be about referees' decisions that have changed the game.
From the heart of your community, Wrexham's heartbeat. This is Calon FM.
We've just had 2 games where a red card has completely changed the game. We have the Trotter sending off against Bromley, and I think if Trotter was playing that game, I think it may have been a different game. I think we may have still got the win, but I think it would have been a different game. I don't think Mullen would have had as much space. And we've had the McAlinden sending off, which completely changed the game as well. And you've posted to the fans referees' decisions that have changed games. So on Twitter, so Mark, please read some.
Well, we've had some fantastic responses. I deliberately phrased that carefully because I don't want to just hang refs out to dry. Like I said before, sometimes you only get one look at it. If I can talk to through a couple of decisions where I think there's no justification and the ref deserves to be called out to start off with, because others are just matters of opinion or errors made in good faith. Ben Williams rightly mentioned the first one that came into my head, which was Maidstone away, when Sam Allison, who, as Ben says, bafflingly now refs in the Football League, sent off both Manny Smith for a professional foul and Mark Carrington for complaining about it. And the thing that made it unforgivable for me was, well, it's a professional foul. Players in on goal. Yes, if Manny Smith challenges him, he's about 7 yards out. If he fouls him, yeah, it's a professional foul. I think it's a contentious decision whether he fouls him. You can't see for sure on the footage, but I certainly at the time and on the footage felt it was a harsh one. I thought it looked like a good tackle to me. But the thing is that, and what makes it unforgivable, is that the referee sent him off, and that is not the rule. This was after the triple jeopardy rule came in. So a professional foul in the penalty area cannot be a red card if you've made an attempt to play the ball. It can be if you pull a bloke back, but it can't be if you try and make a tackle. And Manny Smith, like I said, I think actually made a clean tackle. So the referee got the rules wrong. That's inexcusable. You can't have that. And then Carrington gets sent off for telling him, you got the rules wrong there, ref. So the ref wouldn't have that and sent him off as well. I don't know how he put it exactly, although the fact that Carrington, I don't recall Carrington getting many bookings for dissent, means that I suspect he's experienced enough to know how to say it without going too far. So I think the referee may well have overreacted because his authority is being challenged. But that was absolutely inexcusable because he just didn't know the rule.
Yeah,
that's wrong. You know, I can forgive an error judgment. Like I said, the McAlinden red card was wrong, but I can forgive it because the ref has one chance to see it, makes a decision. But for me, I can't forgive not knowing the rules of football. Absolute nonsense.
Yeah, especially when that's your job and you're refereeing at a professional level.
Well, Ben followed up saying he's never been so angry with the referee for years. Yeah, and with good reason. And that's the point, isn't it? It's not just, it's an ignorant decision.
100%.
Also, here's a nice one from Chris Maxwell, the other Chris Maxwell, not Chris Maxwell, as in way save. That's how people say goalkeeper these days, apparently. I was speaking emoji. And this is a beauty, and I didn't remember this until he mentioned it. Jamie Vardy should have been sent off for a shocking foul on Nat Knight Percival when we were 1-up at Fleetwood in a 98-point season. Yeah. And then the ref sends Joe Clark off with an inexplicable second yellow. Final score is 1-1. I mean, obviously that could have made a major difference to how the title race panned out. And lack of courage. I mean, I understand why refs get nervous sometimes about making decisions, but lack of courage is frustrating, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I completely forgot about that one as well. That was a really good memory by Chris Maxwell, not the goalkeeper Chris Maxwell.
Not the way. Chris Maxwell, yeah. Craig Jones has gone for a classic, and it's a strange one. The Blythe Spartans, 1978, so the FA Cup 5th round, where Blythe Spartans come to the racecourse and deserve to win. We're losing 1-0. It's very late. We get a corner. It's taken, and Blythe Spartans clear it. The referee makes us take it again because the flag had fallen out of the turf. The pitch was really hard, and the flag had fallen down. So the referee says it's not a legal kick. The flag's got to be standing up. So they put it back in. We take the corner again. It's cleared, and the referee says take it again. The flag fell over again. And so the third time, after ramming the flag in again, Les Cartwright takes the corner, Dixon McNeil scores, and the flag has stayed upright. And so we're all right. And as Craig Jones says, that keeper caught the first one, we probably would have lost. And Alf Gray, who also gave us a penalty in the replay, went on to referee the 83 Cup final. He knew his rules, I suppose. But we were very, very lucky. Rather than play Arsenal in quarterfinals, we'd have gone out to Blythe Spartans.
Wow, I've never heard of that one.
Yeah.
That is a referee who's probably a bit too much of a stickler for the rules. Because if I was a Blythe Spartans fan, I'd be pretty fuming if that happened.
Oh, totally. It's on YouTube. If you can have a look at it.
Yeah, I certainly will.
I think the clip on YouTube doesn't show everything because it was actually retaken twice. And I think it just shows the second retake where, as Craig says, the keeper caught it. There's other stuff from that year, though, because then we play Arsenal in the quarterfinals and we lose 3-2. When it's 1-0 to Arsenal, we score, Bobby Shinton scores, and it's disallowed. And it's sort of difficult to work out why. It's basically a classic. I mean, it always rankles a little bit with me when people talk about offside traps, because a proper offside trap is genuinely everyone charges up the pitch. It's not just a high line. And Arsenal try to play an offside trap, but we spring it. So they decide they have a trigger. They all rush up, but we dink it over the top, and we've got 3 players on their keeper. And it's unfortunately, we mess it up, but the rebound comes off the keeper. Mickey Thomas touches it down, and Bobby Shinton scores. Now, the referee, when the offside trap is played, he's level with it. And so he makes a decision, not the linesman. And he's swinging. It's really weird. He swings his arms circularly to say, play on. I can make this decision. I can see it. Carry on playing. But then when it goes in, he disallows it. And there's nothing afterwards. And I've gone through it frame by frame. There's nothing afterwards controversial. It doesn't go near to going out. Admittedly, all right, Shinton's running in when it's 3-on-1 and squares it for Mickey Thomas to shoot the first time. But Thomas is definitely behind him, so he's not offside. He can't be offside. The ball does come back in again off a ricochet, and Thomas touches it down for Shinton. Shinton's standing behind him now, so he can't be offside. So has he overruled himself, having said play on? It is baffling. So we lose 3-2, but we have a goal disallowed when it's just 1-0. It's a weird one, and who knows? I mean, we might not Arsenal out and been in the semi-final of the Cup against Orient. That'd be a thing.
Wow, that's some real Wrexham history right there. I didn't even know all this.
Of course, you could say the same, and I'm a little wary of saying this about when we beat Arsenal as well. Famously, the person who pushed this was Jimmy Hill. Have you ever seen the Jimmy Hill rant on Match of the Day? It's incredible. After we beat Arsenal, it's brilliant. I mean, everyone's celebrating. BBC are like delighted. Match of the Day, we've got the biggest shock of all time. And Des Lynam is clearly delighted. And he interviews Brian Flynn and Mickey Thomas. And then after that, Jimmy Hill starts complaining about it. And it's rotten. It shouldn't have. It wasn't a foul for the Thomas goal. And Arsenal had to equalise it disallowed, and it's despicable, and I'm furious. And he's thinking, hang on a second, everyone should be celebrating this, shouldn't they? And then he gets a tenner out and slaps it on the table, says, I had Arsenal in the FA Cup sweep, and here's me money. It's like, hang on, mate, maybe you shouldn't base it on just that. It'd be cost you cash. But he does have a point. The free kick is an odd one that Mickey Thomas scores from. Long ball played forwards. Steve Watkin goes over a header and gets absolutely clattered from behind. That's definitely a foul. But it's a good 10, 15 yards out from where the free kick's taken. He flicks it on. And then I think really it was a classic example of a crafty professional. Gordon Davis sort of backs in really touch tight to David O'Leary to draw the foul right on the edge of the area. I don't think he is fouled, really. I think O'Leary wins it. And although Davis stumbles, I think tellingly, he carries on playing. So I don't think Davis feels he's fouled either, but the ref gives the free kick. And it must be for the second one, because it's on the edge of the area and Mickey scores. And then their equaliser, I think probably was a correct decision to rule it out for offside, because they equalised right at the end. But it's borderline. And there's also a question, it's played in the box, who does it flick off? Does it flick off a defender? In which case, it's not offside. So it is a bit of a call that had to be made there. So certainly important decision that influenced it, or we wouldn't have beaten Arsenal. Tragic. Imagine a world where that happened.
Yeah. Well, doesn't matter now, does it?
Well, it does, because we did beat them. And it's
we beat them. So we can forget about that now.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares? We won. Look in the paper if you want to know the score.
Exactly.
And now you had was it a birthday spoiled by a referee?
Well, it wasn't a birthday. We'll take you back to the season where Brian Little was managers, and it was the season we went down, and it was a Christmas present from my brother to take me to Rotherham, of all places, to watch.
See it with Millmore.
It was. And they were a good side at the time, from what I can remember. So, and we were absolutely poor. And we remember getting on the bus and going to the away end of shattered glass everywhere. Their old ground was really something to. It was really something, wasn't it? Anyway, and 15 minutes into the game, it was Matty Crowley. He was. I remember him starting was quite a big thing at the time, because Brian Little was finally given his chance. And he lunges in for a ridiculous challenge. Maybe he got excited and got red carded straight away. And that completely changed the game. And I can't quite remember the score, but I remember them beating us really convincingly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's one. That's a bit of an obscure one that I remember, because there wasn't many Wrexham fans in the crowd for that one.
How Matty Crowell stole Christmas.
That's got to be the headline for this Dragonheart.
Are you sure? Because I think that maybe the headline for Dragonheart should be Koeshte Zemra a Dragoit, which of course we all know is Albanian for this is Dragonheart.
I need to learn that. I need to learn that.
We'll have to get some players to say it, won't we? Hi, I'm Dragonheart. I'm Jake Hyde. And Koeshte Zemra Dragoit.
You just tell him it's Welsh.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, way. Manipulating these poor footballers. Aren't we rotten?
So, what's your experience of a decision that's changed the game?
Well, there's some good ones here that mentioned ones that I would have wanted to. I've got to say, Adam Williams and I are of a mind, but neither of us completely accurately remember this. Okay? So I'll read you through the exchange, perhaps. Adam said, Bournemouth away when a goal got disallowed, as the ref thought the linesman would put his flag up. It turned out to be a steward standing up. And then I said, a few days later, the same player, Falconbridge, scored, but the ball bounced out the net and the ref thought it hit the bar and didn't give a goal. Now, we are accurate, except Adam says, didn't he score against Notts County on the opening game of the MRS? Now, the thing is, we're both sort of right, but our details aren't quite correct. Adam is right to correct me. It was Notts County. It wasn't actually the first day of the Bull Road stand-up. But what happened was, yes, the ball came in, and then Falconbridge headed it. It went in, hit the stanchion support, the net support in the top corner. The keeper got his hand to it, hit that, came bouncing straight back out again. The ref thought it hit the bar and carried on playing. It was like, we scored. No, you didn't, lads. Come on, carry on. Get it, honest mistake. And the ref admitted afterwards, when he showed him the footage, he was like, "Oh, sorry about that." And then the next Saturday, it was actually at Wickham. And my mistake, I've always thought, for some reason, Nelson Mandela effects, that it was Falconbridge both times. It wasn't. It was Andy Morrell the second time, as he was breaking into the team. So he scored at Wickham. But yeah, the referee saw a flash of bright orange, gave offside against him, and it was a steward's tabards that he'd seen. Now, the missing part of the story, because I went looking this up today, the missing part of the story, I can't find the bit where it actually explains how the referee realised. Because Andy Morrell, there's a quote from Andy Morrell saying, "I couldn't believe the referee's reason for denying me the goal." And I was thinking, well, if the referee knew what he'd done, surely that's terrible communication, eh? I mean, isn't the line saying, "Hang on, I didn't put my flag up"? How did he work her out, and why didn't he give the goal? I don't know. Strange one.
That's something like off a TV program. That is, you can't write that. A steward standing up and you think it's offside.
Exactly. That's just crazy, isn't it?
It's just like something from Father Ted. That is excellent.
But speaking of maybe referees maybe being let down by other officials, another one which came up a bit, I'll just find it now, is the Adrian Cislevic ghost goal. Let's just go down and find if somebody mentioned this. I can't find this. Oh, hello, Tim Lewis. Tim
Lewis.
Yeah, he said Cislevic goals the most memorable. So I got a strong feeling about that one. I've got to be honest. I feel very sympathetic with the referee on that occasion. I was the press box, perfect view, right behind Cislevic, and you could see it was a goal, no question. You could see it go in the bottom corner and pass straight through. And the fourth official's got the same view. And I'm confused. Did the fourth official really not see it? I'd feel surprised if they didn't. The linesman has got a chance, surely. Now, what happened in that game was that when the ball went in and then through the net, Wrexham went nuts. And the Wrexham players were sort of chasing the ref around the pitch to say, we scored. And the referee, firstly, unlike Maidstone, did well to keep her cool and not start booking people for questioning her. She thought there was something to investigate here, so she did the right thing. She went around her officials asking them, "What did you see? What did you see?" And it took a hell of a long time to give the goal. And I'm thinking, well, that's because they're not being very helpful to it. To be fair, it went right in the corner. There are some angles. If you're on that post side of the pitch, you probably do think it's a goal, don't you? The ball just flashes past the post. So I have every sympathy for her. But her officials took a hell of a long time to actually get round to telling her what happened. The fourth official, she went to the fourth official last. I'm thinking he should be waving his arms around. She goes around asking both linesmen, fiddling about, trying to find out what's going on. They clearly didn't know. She goes to the fourth official, talks to him for 10 seconds and gives a goal. So he saw it and just didn't help her out. So that's just such a weird one, Matt. But I feel sorry for the ref in that position, because she's got a fourth official there who isn't shouting, "Get over here, I saw exactly what happened."
And an equipment malfunction that was completely out of her control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
as a linesman, you're supposed to check the nets, isn't it? Not the ref.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I do get where you're coming from there with the referee. That is a tough one.
I thought she handled it pretty well, because it was a very stressful situation and she could have really lost the plot and started showing yellow cards.
Yeah.
Felix and Devotion, I'm aware of their work. They seem like nice chaps. Here's a beauty. Wimbledon away in the FA Cup. That's 98, I think. The referee blows as they're hitting a corner for the end of the match. And the ball goes in. Gale scores, doesn't he? I was convinced we'd lost till it dawned on me how many Reds fans were talking about the replay. That's brilliant. So the corner's taken, it's in the air, and the referee blows his whistle, and then a fraction of a second later, the ball goes into the net. And obviously, it seems a bit of a naive refereeing decision to do that. Can you really referee for, up to the last, very, very last second? I find that very dubious, but We got away with it.
Yeah.
There is an alternative one, though, where we didn't. We played Shrewsbury in 1973, and Dave Smallman scored just as the ref blew, and he didn't give the goal. We drew 0-0. So there is an equivalent.
Yeah.
Looking at other ones, there's some great feedback. It was brilliant. Oh, Fearless and Devotion also said anything involving Gurnham Singh. Gurnham Singh was an interesting ref, I've got to say. And he seemed to take a bit of pleasure in winding fans up, it seems. Matthew Ellis responded, I remember the first time he came, mid-90s, I think. He disallowed a goal and we asked the linesman why. His reply was to shrug and shout back, no idea. I have a vague recollection of a throw-in going straight in and him giving a goal when nobody had touched it, which obviously is not a goal. I can't quite put my finger on that. I need to dig around a bit more, I think, to find that one. Steve Carlton says Kevin Lynch at Peterborough. Remember him sending off Barry Jones at Peterborough with one of their players, even though we lost the home. Oh, sorry, even though we lost, the home crowd booed him off, which is very sporting. And Steve Jones, quite rightly, says the ref who sent Stephen Wright off for getting elbowed by Edgar Davids. I mean, that was horrific, wasn't it?
That was wild. That was.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a photo of Stephen Wright that he took and put on social media in the bus of his face?
Oh, I can't remember it, to be honest.
I'm telling you, it's not pretty. It is not nice. And Andy Ball says about 5 years ago, a team like Bromley clocking up a total of about 21 minutes on the floor. That was Guiseley, I think. And the ref failed. The time wasting was horrific. Or was it Bromley? But I remember I ran a stopwatch on it because I was so annoyed at the time wasting. And it was about 21 minutes of the ball being dead in the second half as they tried to waste time. And I think the referees, just punish them, book them, add age time on, If they want to be like that, just punish them, for it. It's, I don't know. Robert Williams has got an example of one which is a match changer rather than a dubious one. Ricky Ravenhill getting sent off for Chester against us in 2007. They were bossing midfield and on top. And then he lunges in on Ingham and got sent off. And we won 2-1. Remember that?
Yeah, Uriah Rennie was the ref, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I remember that one. That was when Mark Jones scored and Neil Roberts, wasn't it? Yeah,
that's right.
Good away day, that.
I always liked Uriah Rennie. I always thought he was not... he was strong. He wouldn't get pressured by people. And I mean, it's very easy at Chester to let the Chester player get away with it. But he went in like collarbone height on Ingham. It was a red card. He did really well, I thought.
He was a ref who's refed at a higher level, though, wasn't he? So I think going to Wrexham Chester is not going to face someone like him, is it?
But I always found it was odd that at that higher level, he seemed to be a target for criticism.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought he was consistently strong and consistently good. But he seemed to be an unpopular ref at the higher level. But I can't for the life of me see why. I thought he was one of the best ones I've seen, Greg Mawson. Here's a classic. Tim Breaker against West Ham. Have you ever seen that one? That's after we've beaten Arsenal, we draw West Ham. We draw 2-2 at West Ham. And then the replay at the racecourse. We start pretty well, but go behind. And then the second half, Carl Connolly is through on goal and Tim Breaker runs behind him and legs him over. I mean, if you want a video to teach referees what a blatant professional foul is, that was it. I mean, honestly, he's broken totally clear. Apart from Breaker, there's nobody within about 15 yards of him, behind him. There's nobody between him and the goalkeeper. He's right down the middle, and McCloskey makes no attempt. McCloskey was the goalie. Breaker makes no attempt to play the ball. He just slides in, and he just chops both his legs from under him. I mean, it is the single most horrific, obvious red card you've ever seen, and the ref gave him a yellow. And I've got to say, I'm trying to say about errors of judgment against really inexplicable mistakes. That's not a judgment call. He gave the foul. There was no one else in the postcode. It's a red card. And that is just an act of, well, the best you could say is cowardice, I think, to be honest with you. It was really astonishing decision. You look that up and your jaw will drop and you'll think, what on earth? How on earth could that not be off? I've got a couple of others I was thinking about myself as well. I just want to double check I've not missed anybody out because we've got such brilliant comments. Oh, I see that Wrexham Carl also mentioned the Wimbledon game. Sorry, Carl, I didn't see there were two. I was thinking about Roma, the away game at Roma. We lose 2-0. It was a terrible Wrexham team. I know we just beaten Porto, but it was a miracle that. And then we lose 2-0 at Roma. But to be perfectly frank, both goals shouldn't have stood. The first one's a penalty, and it's given for handball, but it was a Roma player who handled it. Near post corner, players jump in the air, ref sees a hand hit a ball, gives a penalty, but it was actually Pruzzo, their centre forward, who handled it. Pruzzo steps up and scores. So that was scandalous. And then their second goal. Now I'm going to be a little wary about this one because now it would be a goal. In those days, and maybe this is why that Bobby Shinton goal's disallowed against Arsenal. There was much more of an attitude of if you're at all offside, you're just offside. Interfering doesn't really matter. They're much less likely to give you the benefit of the doubt for interference. Toninho Cerezo, the brilliant Brazil player who played for Roma, scored a screamer from 25 yards, but there are players standing offside roughly in the path of the shot. So, I think probably these days they'd look at it and say not enough in the path of it. But in those days, I think they would have disallowed it generally. So I think we were very unlucky on both counts. We lost a home tie 1-0. But if we'd drawn the away game 0-0, then that game would have been played in a different manner, wouldn't it? So, and I have two others, if you can indulge me. The other one is a classic Eastern European 1970s robbery. And you've got to wonder about this game. Right, we play Hijack Split, so it's our second ever game in Europe, 1972. We win the home leg 3-1. And so we think, wow, this is fantastic. We go to Split and we lose 2-0. So we go out in away goals. But the players all said, and there was corruption in some matches then, there's lots of stories of like bribes and different things going on in European games. All the players say it was appalling. Now, everything was being given against us. One of the goals we lose is a penalty. Apparently, that's not so contentious. Gareth Davies pulls a man back in the box. But 84th minute, corner is put in. Eddie May jumps to score. And, well, by his account, by other players' accounts, by John Neal's account, by the newspaper accounts, two players jump with him and they both grab him, one with each arm, and they both pull him to the ground. So he's fouled on both sides. And he's still, because he's a man mountain, heads at a foot wide. And then afterwards says, there's no question I just scores. I would never have missed that. And the ref doesn't give a penalty. After the match, Mickey Evans, who I remember as being a very sort of calm bloke, gets sent off for screaming at the referee. And that does sound like it was a real daylight robbery.
Wow. We played Hijack Split. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
That's cool in itself. We knocked out Zurich, and then we played Hijack Split. Yeah. And then the other thing I want to say is just that Rochdale is a terrifying black hole of injustice. Because in the mid-'80s, they won this game. Oh, I'm so stupid. I should have got the programme out because the programme afterwards is hysterical. Dixon McNeil's programme notes after it are brilliant, where he just goes nuts about how appalling the ref is. And you look at it, you think, how's he got away with saying this in the programme? He just launches into the ref. We lose 3-2, and there were loads of controversial decisions throughout the game, but the winning goal is that the Wrexham goalie's got the ball in his hands, and a Rochdale player runs up and just punches the ball out of his hands and kicks it into the net, and the ref and linesman weren't looking. So they just suddenly hear cheering, see the ball in the net, and they just give a goal. Now, that's all right. But in 1972, we lose 1-0 there, 88 minutes, ball comes in, and Brogdon, the Rochdale striker, controls it with one arm and then knocks it into the goal with the other. And it's given.
Wow.
So there's a couple of historic corkers, I think.
Wow.
For us to consider.
I love listening to the historic content, and it's just crazy to me that you just talk about, oh, we played Hadrick Split away. It's just, yeah, it's just mad that we have actually gone toe to toe with Hadrick Split, Rijeka, Roma, Porto. It's just why this club's so unique, isn't it? Thank you very much. This has been Dragonheart.